Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We will begin the Fiscal Planning, Finance, and Building Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. We have quorum. All committee members are present, and call to order is in order now. Item 2 on the open session agenda is a motion to convene into closed session. Can we move that, please? Trustee Bailey will second it. All in favor? It's carried. We are so moved. Item 3 is the rise and report from the closed session. This is the report of closed session regarding the minutes of the closed session of the Fiscal Planning, Finance, and Building Committee meeting of September 9th, 2025, and the procurement activity report for August 1st, 2025 to August 31st, 2025 be received and the recommendations therein be approved. Trustee McDonald, will you move that, please? Trustee Parmoli, will you second it? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 4 is the acknowledgement of traditional lands.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
Thank you. Item 5 is the approval of the agenda. We've had the agenda and the report since Friday. Trustee Parmoli, will you move that, please? Trustee Bailey, second. All in favor of approval? That's so carried. Item 6 is declarations of any conflict of interest. Are there any to declare? Hearing none, we'll move forward to item 7, which is an approval of minutes. Item 7.1. The minutes of the Fiscal Planning, Finance, and Building Committee meeting of September 9th. Trustee Alves, will you move that, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Bailey, second, please. Are there any questions about those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of those minutes? Thank you. That's carried. Item 8 is delegations, of which there are none. And item 9 are staff reports. 9.1 is the French immersion boundary change. Herb Campbell and Brisdale Public Schools. This is here as a recommendation for us. But before we move forward, I'd like to read this to everyone, please. The report is here for approval. I have asked committee members to review the report and send any questions to Suzanne Blakeman for clarification ahead of this meeting. If there are no further questions at this time, with the consent of the committee, I will ask for someone to move the recommendation that effective September 2026, the French immersion FI boundary change as described in Appendix 1 for grades 1 to 5 between Herb Campbell Public School and Brisdale Public School be approved. May I have committee consent?
You may.
Thank you. Trustee Davis, will you move this?
Yes.
Order? Yes.
So you're putting
Turn your mic on, please.
you're putting the motion to approve the boundary change without hearing the report, or you?
We're moving the recommendation of the report.
So why wouldn't we have the? Why wouldn't the staff be presenting the report?
I think you understand why.
Oh.
So if that's a point of order and you're challenging me on this, I'm going to ask the committee to hear this argument that I'm asking all of us to move forward with the recommendation that is before us because people were offered an opportunity to ask the questions in advance.
Sure.
Our staff have been through a lot. This is not necessary to make them do this. Let's have this as a vote. All in favor of the position that I am taking, please raise your hand. Lucas, can I see your hand?
Yep, I've got my hand up. You want me to do it on video?
No, that's good. Thank you. That is, my position has been supported. We are going to move forward with this. I'm asking for someone to move the recommendation that effective September 26th, the French immersion boundary change that's described in Appendix 1 for grades 1 to 5 between Herb Campbell Public School and Brisdale Public School be approved. Trustee Davies will move it. Trustee Promoli will second it. All in favor of this receipt. Approval of this report. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to our planning staff for your attention at this time. So that was 9.1. 9.2 is the cost estimate of student transportation for secondary French immersion students, which is here for is information for us for our approval. Is that right? Approval or just a receipt? Information. Receipt, information for receipt. Thank you. This would be presented by Controller Matthew Thomas, Controller of Planning and Accommodation Support Services. Welcome, Controller.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And through you, Chair Cameron. First of all, are you able to hear me?
Yes, all good.
Okay, perfect. All right, so through you, Chair Cameron, at the May 7th, 2025 Physical Planning, Finance, and Building Committee meeting, trustees requested that staff prepare a cost estimate to provide transportation to students enrolled in secondary French immersion programs at PDSB schools. The request highlighted that transportation is provided for secondary school students enrolled in regional learning choices programs, but not for secondary school students enrolled in FI or French immersion programs, and that the lack of transportation in this instance, may preclude PDSB elementary French immersion students from continuing into secondary French immersion at PDSB schools due to the distance they live from their catchment FI secondary school. I will note that in preparing this report, information was gathered as requested, much of which is highlighted in the report. There are 7 PDSB secondary schools which offer FI programs. Transportation for students is currently provided based on the eligibility criteria noted in Board Policy TRN 1400, Transportation. As of early September 2025, there were approximately 1,500 students enrolled in secondary FI programs across PDSB schools. And this number includes those students who attend FI at Humberview Secondary School, for which transportation is already provided, and that is because of the lack of public transit alternative options for many of those students. Excluding Humberview Secondary School students, approximately 650 students live beyond 3.8 kilometers, which is the secondary home to school distance threshold for transportation eligibility from the FI school which serves them. And so with appreciation to staff at Stop Bar, Student Transportation of Peel Region, a preliminary cost estimate to provide student transportation for all of PDSB's secondary French immersion students would be somewhere in the range of between an additional $900,000 to $1.5 million annually, and that range depends on the number of additional buses required. In terms of putting that information together, the estimate takes into account different options of how routes would be set up and what the travel time, travel distance scenarios might be. So essentially, different scenarios were put together which looked at how full a bus would need to be in order for students to be loaded and transported to a secondary FI program. In some cases, at the low end, as you can see in the table that's provided in the report, there were 3 different scenarios. A bus loaded at 48 students, which is essentially filling it up. A bus loaded at 36 students, which is about 3/4 full, and a bus loaded at 24 students, which is about half full. And the reason those numbers were chosen was just to provide a little bit of a comparison of what the potential capacity and the potential utilization or occupancy of a bus may be, depending on how a route travels, and the number of students in a particular area that would be transported, etc. So looking at that table and using an average daily rate for a bus, which is currently based on the operator contracts that StopR has, about $369 per day. The estimated annual cost, as you can see in the table, is anywhere in the neighborhood of between $960,000 and about $1.78 million. The actual amount of students that would be loaded would be, of course, calculated based on the exact numbers of students who would require the transportation should a decision be made to actually implement this service. So again, this is rough modeling based on potential scenarios. Doesn't necessarily take into account the exact or precise modeling and planning that StopR would need to do at the beginning of each school year once they know exactly which students are eligible for transportation based on what has been approved in terms of board policy and whether or not secondary FI students would become eligible for that transportation. So again, this is a rough estimate, but it does show that we are looking at a significant additional cost to the board. At this point, I'll just note as well that there is no secondary French immersion transportation that is provided for our coterminous board as well. And in fact, they don't have French immersion transportation even in their elementary grades. So I will leave it at that. I should also just note that we continue to look at options, other options that could be possibilities. But at this time, just to keep the analysis somewhat simple, we've left it at these three options as presented in tonight's report. And I'm pleased to take any questions.
Thank you, Controller. I'll move this to the floor first with Trustee Promoli. Move it. We second it, Trustee McDonald. It's on the floor. And now, are there any questions, concerns, comments about the report? Trustee Davies?
Just, and I apologize for not saying this to you earlier, but does the students that are home review now, is that something that the ministry gives us extra money for? Or is that something that we pick up on our own?
So through you, Chair, my understanding is that is something that we are absorbing.
Thank you so much for that answer.
Trustee Promoli?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you so much, Matt Thomas. Thank you to all of our staff and to the staff at StopR for all of the work that went into this. I know this was not a small task to bring this information back, and I really appreciate it because I can tell you that I have had a lot of families asking about this for quite some time. So I'm very grateful for the information because it is, I think it's always helpful to have the information that we need so that we can make the best possible decisions. This is, I don't think I'm surprised about the numbers. I think the numbers are obviously challenging for us at a time in education in Ontario when there just doesn't seem to be enough money for anything. But with that said, the challenges for families who do want their students to have the opportunity to continue in French immersion will persist. And I think it's worth exploring the conversation further, but also recognizing that we are limited by the budget that is presented to us by the Ministry of Education. So I would be interested in presenting a motion from the floor where we would have the opportunity as a board of trustees to write a letter to the ministry to discuss the possibility of revisiting the way that we fund transportation to better enable students in French immersion to continue in that stream, because this is a stream that students do have the right to. And at this point, we know that we are in a very challenging time in Ontario where we don't have enough French language teachers. It is it's a huge challenge for boards right across Ontario, and the fewer students who are able to continue in their French language education, the fewer French teachers we're going to have. So we're just looking at a self-perpetuating problem here. So I would be interested in having that conversation. So through your chair, if it would be appropriate, I'd like to present a motion.
So let's hold off. If you're going to put a motion on the floor to do that, let us hear all of the comments around the report.
Absolutely.
First, and we'll deal with that. And what we'll hope to do is receive it. And then we can look at motion discussion. Yes, Trustee McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. And, I appreciate the work that went in here and the investigation of what the other board does. It's so much appreciated. I think transportation, timing on a bus is a problem. I think, with French immersion, the people are spread out for a very large distance, similar to our regional programs. So do you have an estimate what you think the time on the bus will be for these 14, 19, and 26 or 48, 36, 24 bus routes?
So through you, Chair Cameron, I would have to speculate, or at least estimate, that we would be looking at relatively long bus routes in some cases. As noted in the report, we do have 7 secondary schools that offer French immersion. Depending on the distance from where a student might live to their nearest catchment FI secondary school, we may be looking at some longer travel times. But it would definitely depend on how each route is actually established, and also what sort of timing they would be looking at. And to Trustee McDonald's point, certainly the experience with regional program transportation has shown that sometimes there are issues as well with longer routes taking longer amounts of time, especially once you factor in traffic congestion as well. So I don't know if that answers the question specifically, but it's certainly something that we can take back and do some more further investigation. As I noted earlier, there hasn't been any detailed planning or modeling done of specific routes to actually be able to provide a more precise answer.
Can I follow up with that?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I appreciate that. And I know you're guesstimating a bit, but where would you probably think, because we have requirements of how long you can be on a bus through stop or two, right? So where do you think the landing would be? I don't think it's at 14 buses, but where do you think it would be landing?
Through Chair Cameron, I think the Stop Our team would try to optimize the number of students who could be accommodated on a bus. It would depend on the specific location, again, of where students live relative to the school that they're attending. But in order to try and accommodate as many students as possible, you've got a couple of choices. One, you can either try and make the route a bit longer by going more door to door, if you will, or closer to where students live, have the route sort of travel that way. Or you could have centralized bus stops, similar to what we're doing with our regional choice programs, and have students have to go a little further than they normally would to a bus stop. But what that does is it helps to reduce the travel time by having students come to centralized locations, and it keeps the bus moving a little bit quicker. So to answer your question, Trustee McDonald, I believe Stop Our would be looking to try and optimize the routing efficiency, if you will, to try and keep the number of buses as low as possible, but at the same time, keep that service level, as you've noted, to a travel time that's within board policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Trustee Davis?
Just another, sorry again for not submitting this to you earlier, Philip Thomas. I was thinking that since these are all in the actual Brampton or Mississauga, as the Caledon trust students are already taken care of, would it not be more economically feasible to just give them bus passes so they can use city transportation?
Through Chair Cameron, that's an interesting observation, Trustee Davies. I mean, that is something that some student transportation consortia around the province are starting to investigate more and more, particularly in smaller communities where They have been able to explore that kind of arrangement. It's certainly something that we can take back as well to our municipal transit partners in Brampton and Mississauga for further discussion.
Thank you so much for that excellent answer.
Trustee Promoli.
Thank you, Chair. Some really interesting points that have come up from my colleagues at the table. I think it is important that we are cautious about how much time that we have our students that we expect them to be spending on the bus. But I do want to note that in Ward 11, I have students who live very close to the 401, and depending on which side that they live on, if they want to go to an arts program in secondary, they either go all the way to Mayfield or all the way to Cawthra. So they're already traveling quite a distance if they happen to live in that part of my ward, just to engage in some of the programs. So for my French immersion students who live up by David Leader Middle School, for example, if they want to continue in their French immersion program, and that is one of our middle school French immersion schools, they need to go to Streetsville Secondary. And Streetsville is significantly closer for them than Cawthra, than Arundel if they want to go to IB, than John Fraser if they want AP. It's much closer for them, but it's not well connected by municipal transportation. We do have city buses, but as a parent of a high school student right now, I can tell you that it is not as simple as it looks like, even if it looks like it should be. And so sometimes it ends up being not actually a convenient option for students to get to and from school, unfortunately, even though it would be great if it would be great actually if we could see our municipal partners find ways to put in bus routes that would better serve school communities going between schools, but that might be another conversation to have too. But recognizing that I am having particular concerns come from especially that area up near the 401, where my students live 9 kilometers from the closest French immersion school, and there is no simple way for them to get to school if they want to continue in their French immersion learning. And they do want to, and they're making the effort, but they're really struggling. And there are a lot of them who are simply opting to go to the local Catholic school because it's right there. And so I hate to see them lose out on their French education because they just simply can't get there. And they're leaving our board as an alternative. So yeah, so I think these are important points. I wish that we had better public transit. I'm a big fan of it. We just don't. So yeah.
Thank you. I think we've heard Controller Thomas say he would take that conversation back to our municipal public transit partners through STOPR as a team to see what that could produce in terms of dialogue and possible commitment. That would be very helpful, I think, moving forward as a possible option. I wanted to share something that because I'm the area that has busing for French immersion secondary school, and it was partly what you were talking about that drove this. I mean, we have no public transit. If we had public transit in my area, I would not have argued for board provided busing when I did back then, because it would have been the same as Brampton and Mississauga, but we don't. And the board, pre my time, put French immersion in Caledon at Humberview Secondary School, which is at the furthest northeasterly corner of this region. And the children who are on the west side of Caledon, possibly as far as Winston Churchill Boulevard and Highway 9, were attending French immersion grades 1 to 8 at Herb Campbell Public School. And so when I joined, I was getting all these phone calls at graduation time when families were learning, their children would have to go all the way to Humberview if they wanted to continue their French immersion studies. And they had been in it for 8 years already. We're really frustrated that the parents can't do this. They can't take them and pick them up and when it's so far away. And so most of those children stopped learning French. And that was a problem for the program at Humberview. So it was depleted of learners and the program was sinking. So it helped when the board approved that busing. Now, to Trustee McDonald's point, I want to add that those children are on the bus a long time. From the furthest west, the Mayfield boundary, if you like, if you live in the Mayfield boundary and you want to go to French immersion in secondary in Caledon, you have to go to Humberview. But they're on the bus for a long time. But I can tell you how many calls I've had about it's a long time on the bus. None. because they're happy that they can continue their French immersion studies and eventually achieve a dual language diploma, I think is the phrase. So they're super happy about being able to do that now. I would love it if all of our students everywhere in this board could have access to that French immersion secondary level. However, we get it through public transit, through the board, negotiating with them and maybe helping to offset the idea as Trustee Davies had, or through the ministry giving us some more money, whatever way. This is a very important opportunity for our students. I will say that the students who left the Herb Campbell in my early years and quit French immersion went to Robert F. Hall, the secondary Catholic school, which was closer than Hungerview. So we were losing on all kinds of fronts. And so I'm wanting this report to come through for receipt, and then whatever further discussion we're going to have after that, we ought to be open to it. Laura, are there any other comments? Yes. Trustee Bailey.
Through you, Chair, building on what you just said, this report is actually very important because it is building on our children's future. The region of Peel is a French designated area. So French is really important for them to learn. A lot of employers in the region of Peel are looking for people who can speak French.
Including our board.
Including our board, include a lot of employers. So the ability to be bilingual or to be able to say I can speak French is something, it gives them a leg up. So we want them to have this opportunity. So your motion is very important. Very, very important. So how we can get it done?
So we don't have the motion yet.
No, we don't have the motion yet. So how we can facilitate something, we might not be able to get them busing, but something, some way, somehow. So let's see how we can facilitate this.
With you. More like, can I just ask a question? Do we need to, if we receive this as our information, can we then move to a suggestion of a motion? Or do we have to do it within the report is what I'm asking?
Yeah, within arising from the report.
Okay, so we do it within the report. Okay, so Lucas, any comment or question from you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not just yet, but I will for the motion.
And apologies, that was Trustee Alves. Thank you. So now this is arising. We could hear Trustee Cromoli had indicated she would like to present a motion for our consideration. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Whereas the cost to expand busing for secondary French immersion students is currently outside the budget for transportation allotted to the Peel District School Board by the Ministry of Education, and whereas many French immersion students struggle to continue their education in the French immersion stream in secondary school due to challenges with available transportation, and whereas the Council of Ontario Directors of Education has cited a critical shortage in available French language teachers in Ontario, and whereas there has been an increased demand for French language education in Ontario, and whereas greater access to French education at the secondary level may prepare more students to become French language educators following their post-secondary studies, and whereas the Minister of Education has expressed a willingness to address challenges with existing funding formulas to better meet the needs of Ontario students, and whereas a 2021 French language working group report to the Ministry of Education called for an increase in funding for French language education to help address this shortage in French language teachers, therefore be it resolved that the Peel District School Board trustees write a letter to the Minister of Education requesting a review of funding for busing for secondary French immersion students to enable students to continue their studies in the French immersion stream. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so that's a motion. You want to speak to it? As a motion.
We have to have it seconded.
Sorry?
Seconded. We have a seconded.
I thought you were second.
We need a
Can you
second.
turn on your microphone so you can speak?
Seconder.
No, okay. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Bailey, thank you. It's on the floor now. You can speak to it. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Trustee McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. So I really appreciate the conversation that we've been having here tonight. I think there's a lot of important things for us to be considering. I want to make sure that as a board that we're doing everything we can to best meet the needs of our students, and recognizing that we are seeing more students struggle with finding to find the path to actually continue their studies in French education. I think that we do have to recognize that this is a concern. I think we've done a great job as a board in expanding opportunities and availability and access to education when it comes to our regional programs. We're connecting students as much as we can in every way possible, but we do continue to have this gap where we have this small section of secondary students who are unable to access their education the same way that we're providing access to education for every other secondary student in the board. Now, we do provide both the regular English stream and we provide a French immersion stream. And these are both streams that students have a right to. And if they have already been spending 8 years in French immersion, and then they suddenly lose access because they happen to live too far from the closest French immersion school, then we have given them 8 years of a great opportunity and advantage, and then we've cut it off. And that's, to me, that seems a real shame. I think that we have an opportunity now to look to the ministry and ask them if they can work with us to find an opportunity to better support our students, recognizing that we do have a severe shortage of French language teachers in this province, and it is affecting the way that boards across Ontario are able to provide French language education. I'm a parent in this board. I've got 2 kids who are going through the system right now. I've seen it. I've seen the way that a shortage of French language teachers is affecting what is available for students. And I don't want that to be something that continues. If there's something that we can do right here in this board to make sure that our students have the opportunities that they need so that they can continue, whether they want to be educators, whether they want to work in any field that may call on them to have that ability to speak French. It is one of our 2 official languages, and I'd like them to have whatever opportunity we're able to offer them. And I don't want them to be limited by whether or not they can get to school. So I really appreciate all the questions and comments that have come up tonight. I think there are important factors to consider here, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to ask that question. How can we better make sure that all of our students have access to their stream of education? So thank you.
Thank you. I have everyone on the clock. When we're speaking, please, it's a motion. Other comments? Someone else like to speak to this? Trustee Alves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to start by acknowledging the importance of the issue my colleague has raised. Transportation can be a real barrier for many families when it comes to accessing French immersion or any other programs. And I recognize that this motion seeks to address those challenges. I think it's also true that this is a real opportunity to reflect on our student movement patterns. And while we do lose some families, as mentioned, to the board adjacent because of transportation, I think we also know that we attract families in similar situations, as the board adjacent does not fund transportation for their French immersion programs. So there are both pressures and opportunities when it comes to how families make these decisions. But I think that said, I won't be able to support this motion at this time. And the reason is because I think we have to look at this request in the broader context of past advocacy. Specifically, in the case of special education, we brought forward a very similar ask to the ministry, an ask that was about removing barriers and creating equitable spaces for some of our most vulnerable students. And not only did that request fail to gain traction, it was met with reductions rather than new investments. And that was just before we broke for summer break. In fact, we wrote a letter requesting additional funding for funding that was cut, and we were told that this government has never invested more than it has now in education, and essentially to make do with what we were given. And I think that experience tells us something about the current ministry's current posture. So while I respect the intent of asking again in a different area, I just don't think it's the most prudent way to put forward a new ask for net new funding when the province has consistently not supported such requests. Instead, I believe we should remain focused on restoring and protecting the funding that has already been cut, particularly in areas where students with complex needs are directly impacted, such as special education. But I truly do respect the intent behind this motion, and I know it comes from a place of wanting to support families. And I, in a different context, perhaps in a different environment, I would support it. But given the ministry's track record and the risks of diluting our advocacy by making multiple different asks, I can't support it today.
Thank you, Trustee Alves. Are there any other comments, questions? Trustee Davies, did you speak already? No, not to the motion. Not to the motion.
No, so my only concern with this is it specifically says busing. And if it said transportation, as in giving our staff the option of the city buses that are already there, because I'm looking at the report and an extra 26 buses on the roads of Mississauga and Brampton in the morning and afternoon, a rush hour, the environment and all that stuff. I just don't think that that's a good look unless we have to do that. But it becomes an access of, okay, so the argument is financially we can't get our children to FI. But if we provide city buses, if it's cheaper for us and we are providing transportation, and I just want to leave that option open to staff.
Excuse me, thank you, Trustee Davis. Might you be suggesting a deferral until such time as we hear on the motion, until such time as we hear from Controller Thomas with that discussion with the.
Maybe a friendly amendment to say instead of busing, transportation. And then that covers everything, because busing means school bus, stop bar, and all the costs and damage to the environment that entails. However, if Controller Thomas finds that, hey, it's better for the environment and it's less expensive for us to do a deal with Peel Transportation, Peel the busing, city buses, and we can provide transportation, which is the goal of this. It's not to give anyone a leg up on anyone else. We're helping those families who financially cannot get them there. And as you said, Mr. Chair, that your students don't mind the long bus rides because they enjoy the opportunity to continue their French education. And if we can do it less harm in the environment and at a lower cost by city buses, then that should be an option that we explore. That's all.
So we have a friendly amendment to your motion. Would that be acceptable to you?
Through you, Chair. Yes, I'm 100% fine with changing the wording here of review of funding for busing to review of funding for transportation. Is that what we're looking for, Trustee Davies?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm 100% fine with that.
Okay, so we have a slight changing of swapping out a word for another word, and that is the motion now in place. If there is, yes, Trustee McDonald?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Money and asking the government for money, especially in these times. Every board is asking for money right now, and it's being scoffed off by the government. But if we look at it from our perspective and what we've been advocating for, I don't think this is a priority. We've sent a letter asking for resources and things to be changed to combat the violence in our schools. We've sent other letters for SEAC. Our priorities were what, 8 million overspent on transportation. We can't be putting our money in transportation. I have students that don't eat before coming to school. I have some great experiments going on where you're adding more staff to reduce the suspensions. That takes money, but that improves outcome and performance, especially for our most marginalized. So I can't support a motion to write a letter when I've heard before that we dilute our stuff. We can't ask for everything. So we have to pick what is priority to us. And as much as I want everyone to bus, and if we had the money, we would have breakfast programs in all of the schools, we would have busing for all, and we would have enough psychologists testing all our children that need to be tested. But that's not the conditions we're in. And I don't think a letter on this subject is truly the priority that the board is focused on right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other final comments? You can wrap up.
Sure. Okay, thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you so much. And I absolutely want to make sure that everyone understands that I completely agree that we have a lot of very serious priorities in public education right now, and every single one of them should be properly funded. There's no reason that we should be having to ask for money for special education. There's no reason we should be having to ask for money for sufficient staff for any school. None of that should be what we're doing. It is what we're doing. And I agree with you. We have a lot of serious asks, and I don't want this to be something where it looks like we're diluting the other serious challenges that we're facing. I also don't want to be afraid to put out there that we do have this need, and that it is a need that many families are telling us that they are seeing a real challenge with. So I absolutely hear you. I understand and respect whatever everybody's going to do at the table here today. But I don't want to set aside people's real challenges when they're also present, because we do have a lot of things that are happening in public education right now. So recognizing that, yes, we need more money for spec ed. Yes, we need more money for additional staff. Yes, we need more money for safety measures in schools. We need all of these things. We also have to make sure that kids are able to get to school and continue to access their education, and they need to be able to get there safely. And so that has to be a real priority too. So I hear you. I think we should not be afraid to ask for what the real cost of education is. And education does cost more than what we're currently getting funded for. So I think that we should be bold about that. So I guess that's my closing remarks. So thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. I'd like to add, have you spoken to this? Not, you go ahead. But we should not have gone to closing remarks.
I know she put her hand up when I was already in.
Sorry. I really think that this is important. I think we're missing something though. Controller Matthew Thomas did get something going, and Trustee Davies did touch on it. And it really has me thinking, what is the cost though of public transportation versus busing? And I think before we send the letter, we should know what is that cost. So can we defer the motion and find out first?
I think in the report, the numbers are there relative to the rough estimates that could be reached at this point. Not knowing how many students, not knowing where they'd be living, they have done their best job creating a rough estimate.
But if they were to work out with the city of Mississauga and the city of Brampton for its student transportation, the cost, or
well, that's what I was asking earlier. If somebody wanted to defer that.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so just a second before we move on that, I need a seconder for Will's amendment of the wording. So go ahead, Trustee Promoli is going to second that. Okay, now we're going to speak to Trustee. That's not really a motion on your part. You're asking, should we be? It's a question. Should we be considering a deferral?
Yes.
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Through you, Chair. I actually happen to know this is about $1,000 a year in Mississauga for public transportation. And I only know this because I have a high school student and we try to figure out how to safely get her to school. So that's not for it's for 10 months. So to and from school was about $1,000.
Right, but if they're doing it by bulk, it would be a different cost.
Right, but that's
yeah. So that's why I'm saying if we did it through the school board, if they were to do it, what would be a cost?
Sure. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do you want to put a deferral on the floor to defer that motion pending controllers?
Through you, Chair, is it something that this table would be okay?
Well, I think you figure that out. You hear that when it comes to a vote, as opposed to asking what the vote would be.
First we'd have to go through his motion first, and then
No.
If you're deferring, what?
Okay, then I'm for the motion to defer it.
Okay.
Who's the seconder?
We need a seconder.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Okay, I'll ask the question for that as the chair.
Oh, sorry. You asked me that.
I appreciate your excitement, but we have a proposal for deferral of this motion pending Controller Thomas's team getting more accurate dollars and cents values from public transit systems in Brampton and Mississauga. Is there a seconder for that deferral? Seeing none, the deferral can't get on the floor, so we'll pass on that. We are ready to go. Were you pointing to something behind me?
No, we're all good.
Okay, because I can't actually see if somebody's got their hand up. So now we're going to address the motion. We've heard it, we've had argument, discussion, and we've had a closing argument. So now I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion?
We're going to speak to the amendment now.
The amendment didn't get on the floor.
I thought I think we passed it, didn't we?
No, we didn't
No,
pass it. You seconded it. Then we haven't voted on the amendment.
The amendment is a one word.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we were good with that, but all in favor of the amendment to change the word from bus to transportation in favor? That carries. Now I'm going to call the vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion as we've heard it from Trustee Promoli, raise your hand. There are 3. All those opposed to the motion as it was presented by Trustee Promoli, raise your hand. Trustee Elms, your hand is up.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you, my hand is up for
Okay.
no, but I would
Very
also remind the committee that we have SAP online as well.
Okay, thank you. The motion fails. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and the hyper corrections of process. We're here now. Now, long awaited for 9.3 is a procurement activity report, which is here for our information to be presented by Tanya Alatisha Charles, who is Controller of Finance Support Services. Welcome, Controller.
Thank you, through you, Chair Cameron. The procurement activity report is here for your receipt. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on procurement activities for the period of August 1st to August 31st of this year. Highlights within the report include awards for the following: an integrated classroom audio, intercom PA, an emergency notification system, a 3-year leasing contract for a cybersecurity threat detection system, a 5-year leasing contract for a CF system for special education, and a contract for plumbing fixture replacement at Riverside Public School. All contracts are awarded in accordance with the board procurement policy and the board procurement regulations. As well, the contracts awarded in this report have been posted publicly by the board as required by applicable public procurement regulations. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Controller. Let's move it to the floor. Trustee Promoli will move it. Trustee Alves, will you second?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's on the floor. Any questions or concerns? Yes, Trustee Promoli.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, I have seen the work happening at McBride. Thank you so much. It's going to make such a huge difference in that school. I'm just really grateful. I know everyone's really excited to see everything coming together. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor of receipt for information? Thank you. That is carried. Item 10 is communications, of which we have none. Item 11, trustee motions for consideration, there are none. Item 12, trustee notices of motions, of which there are none. And item 13, adjournment, of which there are none. No, adjournment, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone.
Can I have a move and second up to adjournment?
For what?
Adjournment.
Yes, moved by trustee Promoli, seconded by trustee Bailey.